uptime was never one of the key metric that I discuss with business because, okay, what's the purpose of having a 99.99 up if conversion is down? So we always talk about business metrics more than tech metrics with business. When I talk to the business, the tech metrics are within the engineering team, but when I discuss with business, it's primarily how do we increase the traffic? How do we increase the conversion?
On today's episode, we're going to dive into some of the tips from one of the best CIOs with a ton of experience that I've ever spoken to before. Someone who has a ton of experience with taking brands into a company, taking them out, and building a single pane of glass across multiple teams in a complicated way so everyone's working off the same data and really turning tech into profit. So really excited for you guys to hear that today. Welcome to another episode of the e-commerce toolbox expert's perspective. Joining us today, we had Madhav, who's the CIO of Janie and Jack. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kylan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I always like to start off by a bit of an introduction. So why don't you take us through your career journey? You actually joined Janie and Jack at a really interesting time when it was being spun out from the Gap. So maybe talk to us a bit about your career journey and how you ended up in your role.
Yeah, actually, I was part of Janie and Jack even before that. So I started my career as a software engineer, always in retail. Worked for JCPenney, Cisco Foods, Walmart, Safeway before joining Gymboree, the original company of Janie and Jack, in 2013. Till that time, I was part of the services industry, joined the industry in 2013. Gymboree, Crazy 8, and Janie and Jack were three brands. In 2019, we went through the bankruptcy process. Gap acquired Janie and Jack. As part of that transaction, I joined Gap, stayed back in Gap doing something else for Gap, and again joined back Janie and Jack a couple of years later. So Janie and Jack has been one of the best premium children's brand, and there's a lot of brand value for that, and I liked working for Gymboree. So that was one of the reasons I came back to Gap, from Gap to Janie and Jack. And recently we acquired one more brand, Hatch Collections Maternity. So we are trying to build more premium brands for the mom.
I love it. And maybe talk to us a bit about the spinning out process. How was that from a technical standpoint, high level? What are kind of, if someone's listening here that may have to go through something similar, do you have any kind of high level piece of advice there?
Yes. So when Gap bought us from Gymboree, the idea is to integrate with Gap ecosystems, because if you think of all retailers, more or less, whether they're big or small, have similar type of technology needs, right from merchandising, inventory management, warehouse management, transportation, e-commerce, point of sale, right? So there'll be a lot of overlap. So the idea was to slowly pick and choose and see which tools will integrate with Gap and which tools will remain as is. And at that time, Gap was going through their own diversification plan of splitting out Gap and Old Navy, which did not span out. And then they've decided to offload Janie and Jack again. So we started that integration to Gap systems, but luckily not much of integration happened. So we were able to retain what originally Janie and Jack had, but then we started to rebuild the pieces again. So for example, we are rebuilding the ERP. We are putting a new PLM system. So during any transition, identifying the systems that overlap and then picking the right tool for the new integrated company would be the key when you're going through that transitions and the data conversions, and how do we make sure the data gets moved over from one company to the other company structure.
That's very cool. And maybe talk to us a bit about, you had to kind of do a pretty big tech overhaul. What did you do? Why? How did you kind of line up the roadmap to be able to hit your goals?
Yeah. So 2017, Gymboree stopped investing in technology. So in 2022, 23, we were already 5 years back from a technology perspective, and to support the business growth that we were experiencing from the pandemic and e-commerce growing, we had to revamp certain tools. primarily all the customer facing, right? We had to put a new order management tool and a new point of sale, because the older point of sale was legacy register based system where the store associate was always standing behind the counter and not able to help the customer on the floor. So we had to go to a mobile friendly POS. So we had put a Salesforce, now Salesforce, earlier it was Predict Spring, and then we revamped our order management system to help us grow wholesale and then all the omni-channel capabilities. Then Commerce Cloud, we were on the older site Genesis architecture from 2017, so we had to upgrade to the new SFRA structure. We had put a new ERP system. We had put in Dynamic 365, and we had put a new PLM system because our older PLM system was almost 17-year-old system, so we had to replace it with that. So there was a combination of technology that is almost to the end of life or already end of life in case of PLM, and also to support the business growth we are experiencing. We had to make smarter chassis to make newer technologies that will be easy for a smaller scale company to manage and maintain without larger engineering teams. And we had to move out of legacy data warehouse system to a Snowflake system. So we did a lot of changes in the last 2 years.
That's a huge roadmap. How are you now thinking about moving forward? Like, is it optimization time? Do you feel like you guys still need to invest in more foundational stuff? Like, how are you thinking about that moving forward?
I think we are 90% there on the foundational stuff. We are growing our wholesale business, so we are trying to find out what additional systems that we need to add from a foundational basis to support wholesale growth. But now it is a time to optimize and drive value from all the tech investments in the last 2 years, right? Or 2+ years. So how do we utilize and deliver more value from the platforms, work with business and see how better they can utilize the tools that are already in play, and then drive business growth from those tools. I think we are at a stage where we need to up our value realization from the investments.
Very cool. And from your perspective, like, what are some of the types of KPIs that CIOs should be reporting on in retail? Like, is it kind of your traditional tech KPIs where it's uptime, throughput of data, things like that? Or do you think they need to start kind of blending into business KPIs like conversion rates and things like that? Like, how are you thinking about that?
Actually, in the last 3 years at Janie and Jack, uptime was never one of the key metric that I discuss with business, right? Because, okay, what's the purpose of having a 99.99 up if conversion is down, right? So we always talk about business metrics more than tech metrics with business. When I talk to the business, the tech metrics are within the engineering team, but when I discuss with business, it's primarily what are we doing that can help them to do the traffic improvement, right? How do I increase the traffic? Then once the traffic is there to the site, how do we increase the conversion? Once the conversion is there, how do we increase our basket size? How do we increase our average transaction value? How do we then look at what's our return percentage, right? So primarily our discussion with business is always business metrics and how tech is playing to help those business metrics. And being a small team, it's always challenging to keep adding new capabilities, right? So we look at the ones really drive business value and add them. So we don't just go and keep doing things from tech reason if there's no real business value.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously you guys have a lot of stores as well. Talk to us a bit about your data strategy from a high level. How are you kind of leveraging in-store POS data, your ERP data, your online data? Like, were you spending a lot of time manually kind of fixing that with the data pipelines before you did those projects? Maybe talk to me a bit about that from a high level.
Yeah. So from a data perspective, again, as part of the last 2 years technology roadmap, we moved to Snowflake. Earlier, we were on a legacy data platform. So we moved to Snowflake, and we have built real-time data pipelines from order management. So one of the reasons why we went for Salesforce order management is to make sure that we have one single place where I'm pulling both in-store purchases and online purchases to the same order management database. So all our POS transactions and e-commerce transactions are in Salesforce OMS, and I do a real-time data pipeline using Salesforce data pipelines to push the data to Snowflake. So we have the real-time data available in Snowflake from transactions that are happening in the stores and e-commerce. From a customer data perspective, we have built our customer 360 recently on Snowflake, again pulling both POS data and e-commerce data together and merge it with the transactional data and inventory data. So we have a solid foundation where we have all channels data along with customer data in one place, and we are building on the same data platform to pull in other data that doesn't exist at enterprise level today. For example, we do not deep dive into Google Analytics data and combine it with marketing in real time. So we want to bring Google Analytics data into the same data platform and then use it for marketing, right? So we try to keep the architecture as simple as possible and make sure that all the data sources are connected to single place, and we are trying to build one single data platform in Snowflake.
If you're listening to the e-commerce toolbox, you're entitled to a podcast exclusive website audit. Go to noibu.com/podcast-audit for a free scan that uncovers the hidden friction blocking your conversions and shows you where you're leaking revenue.
You sound like you have a pretty deep understanding of like functional KPIs, like how marketing interacts with tech. I have the benefit of speaking with a lot of different CIOs, especially at scale. And yeah, like candidly, sometimes I find folks lack the functional context that you're describing here. Like, maybe talk to us a bit about how did you get in the weeds there? Like, what are some of your tactics to actually like get that type of knowledge? Because yeah, I mean, especially if you're a technologist, it doesn't always necessarily come.
Yeah, I think it's how you grew up in your career and what roles you've been playing, right? So though I started as a developer, I then moved on to doing solution architecture. So my strength is building solutions and solution architecture, right? Where having an end-to-end understanding of the entire business process, so that it's easy to meet with business, understand their needs, so that we can come up with solutions that are really solving business problems. So I get involved in all functional, technical solution design sessions. So that's why I keep myself close to the solution that we are building. So I know exactly how the data flows from one system to other system and how the data is being used by business and what are the different business processes that are being run in the company and what processes are being used for and what tools are being used. So I stay involved with business very closely. So that way I really understand how we are using or how we are enabling business to deliver their KPIs.
Very cool. It sounds like you've put a lot of thought and effort into data architecture, data flow. Do you feel like your team is kind of unified across different organizations from marketing to technology? Are they looking at the same data sources, or do you find that there's still some data silos where it's like, hey, I'm seeing this and your team's seeing that, and it doesn't exactly line up in all cases?
We 95% both the business teams and IT team are looking at the same data sources, but there are few areas where business may have other sources. That's what we are trying to identify all the sources and bring them in. For example, when they're looking with marketing, right? Inside marketing, and they're working with different advertisers or third party teams. Sometimes I may not exactly have the data that they are working with, but when they come to us and ask for details, so we try to understand how are they going to use the enterprise data for that purpose, and what are they combining with, or what are they adding to that, so that we can at least help them how enterprise data can be consumed in those discussions.
That's interesting. I just did a LinkedIn post on this, and it was I'm starting to see more and more, and it's definitely in mid-market and scaled businesses like you guys, kind of more on the enterprise. Um, a lot of internal time is spent uh, almost aligning on what's the right KPI. Like there's these different systems, and it sounds like obviously you guys are not really in this camp, where you have this dashboard for conversion, and then you have this dashboard for conversion, and this one includes returns, but that one doesn't sometimes. And then this, and you end up just honestly arguing over who has the right data in
Yes,
across different teams.
yes, that's the biggest challenge. So that's what we try to bring it back everything to enterprise KPI, and then see it's, for example, we use um, Google Analytics, right? Google Analytics may have some traffic number, and Salesforce Commerce Cloud will try its own traffic number, right? And some of the orders or the conversion to the metrics will differ. But when I do my KPI reporting, which is more of an audited sales, which go through all your financial auditing needs and filters out fraud orders or other things and then report it out, it will be different number. So we make sure that what is our base that we want to use. And we have always said that whatever is in enterprise, that becomes your base. And we always try to compare it with that, and then not worry and try to avoid looking at some numbers from other systems, because they may give you a different number, like in case of this conversion, because he's counting extra 2 orders, which are fraud orders, which I will not be counting in the enterprise-wide system. So we do that. And we have those discussions on having that understanding helps when we have meetings with marketing team who comes new and says, oh, my tool says this, why are you saying it is different, right? So having that understanding helps us to ground the discussions. And yes, we do have those situations, but we are able to come to conclusions faster because we understand the different data sources.
And now that everyone's kind of trying to build their own, we'll call it agentic interface on analytics, right? That magic experience of, Madhav, what do I do today to double my conversion on mobile, right? Like, talk to me a bit about how critical you think data structure, single source of truth, data cleansing, like, is it more of a data problem in your perspective than it is an AI problem? Or do you still think the foundational models are too far away from being able to do this?
I think it will primarily be the data problem. When I say data problem, making sure that you are providing consistent and reliable source for your GenAI on which you're trying to ask, right? If you ask GenAI and point it to a data source that is inaccurate, it's going to give you strategies based on that inaccurate data. So ensuring that where are you applying your GenAI becomes very critical, because you don't want to apply it on some data source that is wrong, right? And understanding the semantic layer so that you speak the same metric in all places is critical. So getting the semantic layer that is common across different platforms and getting the data right becomes this thing. But I think GenAI helps you to 60 or 70% of your productivity gain, but doesn't take you to 100%. So still you need to make sure that how do you take it from that to the end point before you take any decisions on that. It will help you your discovery faster. It will help you to cut down your repeated analysis. But I don't think that you can ask until it will tell you the exact strategy that you can just blindly implement it, right? It'll give you maybe a different insight that you didn't think about on how to improve conversion. But I don't think that you can ask a GenAI tool and says that, oh, send a new campaign with extra 10% or with this targeted audience. If you try to just execute it as is, I don't think you'll get the result. You'll have to understand, oh, it's asking you to do this. That means maybe it's adding a new flavor of identifying a new audience set, or it's asking to do a new tactic. I don't think they are there yet that can tell you everything, but it'll speed up your discovery and analysis.
I think you're bang on. I call that the magic machine. People are trying to build the magic machine of like you press a few buttons and it's like the perfect outcome You know what I mean? And,
Yes.
and I think data is a part of it, but I think you're right. I think it's closer to analyzing and investigating than action,
Yes,
if that
yes.
makes sense, and
But it may
recommendations.
help you because you may be overlooking certain a common theme in the data that you may not even see, and it may help you identify those.
Makes sense. And as we look to wrap up, like what's kind of top of mind for you going into F26 planning? Like what's keeping you up? Like what's top of mind?
So for us, we are doing an international expansion. So Janie and Jack, as I said, is a premium brand, and we want to appeal to the international customers. We do a lot of international shipments from US, but we want to grow and establish our own presence internationally. So that's our focus for next year. So we are opening our first store in London, and then we want to grow our wholesale business. So those are the two priorities. And the third thing is from an investor perspective, they want to keep looking and buy premium brands that serve the premium mother. So our mission or vision is to be a service provider for different products a premium mom is looking for, right? So the investors are constantly look out to buy other brands, other businesses that serve in the same space. So my work is to see how I'm building a platform that I can easily integrate. Going back to your first question, when I buy a new brand, how do I integrate? Say, as I said, we bought Hatch Collection, which is a maternity brand last year, and I was able to easily integrate with Janie and Jack platform.
That's really cool. It makes a lot of sense. I wanted to thank you for taking your time. This was awesome. Great episode. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Thanks for having me, and I enjoyed chatting with you.
The e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives is brought to you by Noibu. To find out more about Noibu and how we can help you debug your e-commerce site and rocket your revenue, visit www.noibu.com. That's noibu.com. And then make sure to search for the e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Noibu, thanks for listening.